Hey, so I'm here in Mumbai still. Yesterday I went to the hospital. It was day 12 or 13 since my operation. And I went and had my incision looked at, and I got my stitches out, and I heard from the two nurses there and the doctor who removes your stitches that I was a very good patient because there was no screaming or crying, which apparently is quite common. Um, um, so as I was there, that was the first time the ground level of the hospital has like their outpatient department and a bunch of other stuff going on, and it was very strange being back there because the first time and only other time I was down there was the day after I arrived in Mumbai, and when I went and had met with the neurosurgeons, had a ton of testing, and then was later admitted that night into hospital for my surgery first thing the next day. Um, and as I was there, I was just realizing the stark contrast. So um, I'm not long in my healing from very major surgery, but when I think about the person that walked in that day, that first time, and how she was functioning, it's kind of mind blowing to kind of reflect back on what I was living with, and experiencing the paralysis and experiencing just how extreme my neurological symptoms were becoming. Like, it just felt like this was going to make no sense to anybody, but it just felt like my spinal cord was just like vibrating, like something under way too much pressure, and it was making my neurons scream. So it made my vision and processing and thinking and every single task that I did, that I would dig deep for, because I got a lot of practice digging deep. It just everything, I felt like I had so little tokens and I was spending them at such a high rate. And as I was in those hallways trying to navigate it again, I just looked around and I saw these other people getting pushed by the porters in the wheelchairs. And I was just like, that was me. Like, I arrived at the hospital in the walker, barely able to, like, I was really challenging to use it. And part of the thing for the walker with me is it wasn't that my legs felt tired or weak. It was that I couldn't communicate with them. I couldn't get the movements the way it's supposed to. I couldn't, like, if my legs started to bend at all of a sudden the muscles, like if I was kind of keeping things straighter, like they could kind of do it. But if I bended, that takes more muscle strength. Just like if you go into just a hint of a squat, it takes a lot more energy, and it would collapse under me, and I just couldn't. It was like I required to communicate with muscles that normally we just take for granted, like our bodies just kind of do it, and I had to work cognitively and physically so hard for each movement. And so as I'm on the walker, I I can technically get by a bit, but I have to, like, lock my arms. Well, every time I'm locking my arms, the amount of load it in my upper back and my neck is just so much. So it would, anyways, it just took an extreme amount of energy. And as I'm talking about it, I'm just like, I'm still trying to reflect on, like, what was my method? How was I trying to make that body work? Because it's so surreal to me. So anyways, times like at the hospital or times like at the airport, I was in a wheelchair because I just didn't have the strength in the walker. Like, it could get me a few minutes of walking, and it could not get me any more than that. And so I was being pushed around, and kindly by porters who helped me get from place to place, from test to test. And I saw these other people as I was there yesterday, and they were in the wheelchairs, and I was just like, whoa, like, that was me. And it was almost like I couldn't process it at the time, and I almost saw myself more clearly reflecting back from a safer distance, because, like, I'm walking again, and sure, I'm exhausted, and sure, there's a long way to heal, but, like, I have that in my body. And it was like, I think there was relief, but it was also kind of like, I was like, whoa, that was scary. And I think that I couldn't allow myself during those final few months, even begin to process the gravity of what I was dealing with. Like, I knew I needed to move fast. I felt the sense that, you know, sometimes, especially like when my body would lock down and I couldn't, it was like I got locked in. I couldn't speak, I couldn't move, I couldn't swallow. Like, it got really, really scary. And I knew that was bad, but it was almost like I couldn't allow myself to be afraid, because I just had to, like, you know, make a safety plan, like talk to Brian, let him know what the key signs are, let him know I'll find a way to communicate with, like, you know, a blinking method. I let him know, you know, where to like hold the base of my hair and pull my head forward so that I could start to come to again. Like, and so I was so busy back then trying to find a way to keep going and, you know, stay as safe as possible, that I could not allow myself to like feel it or grieve it or be afraid of it. I just knew I needed to make it as safe as I could. And so when I was in the hallways, I was just like, I quite a few times just like, I felt like crying, because I was just like, oh man, like that's so scary. And I'm not saying it's scary in a way that like I'm crippled by the fear. I'm just saying, like, I think that, you know, whatever it is we're dealing with life, like, you know, sometimes we don't ever want to feel it. And I get it. Sometimes we need to feel it later. Sometimes it slips out when we don't mean it. And I think for me, it was like, here's a moment to kind of reflect on, like, I cannot believe I'm walking again. Or more so, I can't believe I ever couldn't walk. I can't believe I ever couldn't, you know, go get a glass of orange juice because I was using a walker in such a way that, like, that's all I could do to move my body around, you know, a room. And yeah, so it was just like, it was just kind of wild to be there. And I felt like one thing I'm trying to do in life is take those moments, right? Because, you know, we can be strong, but I think that, like, you gotta watch how much you pack away. And so I was really trying to be mindful of, like, thinking about the hard part and also thinking about the part where I'm like, I'm so relieved and I never ever want to go back there. And it's scary to never want to go back there when, you know, my past experiences of being like, I've never been able to gain and maintain meaningful gains. And so now I just have to be able to, like, enjoy it and savor it and hope it keeps developing. I don't know if that makes sense, the idea of, you know, really kind of leaning into something that feels so good. It's like, you know, it's scary because when you really, really enjoy it, if you're not going to have it, like, isn't that almost harder? I don't know. Yeah, and then I met with the neurosurgeon. You know, they did video me, and the walking contrast was incredible and everything, and, you know, got all my, you know, general green lights and stuff. I got a little more recovering to do. I'm not feeling super great today. I definitely pushed my body yesterday, but things are coming along really nicely. And then the other piece is I'm so lucky that I got an answer. I'm so lucky that I figured out, I figured out that I was pointed in the right directions with the right specialists, and that, like, I hate, like, naming names, but at the same time, like, there's a doctor named Dr. Blaskovich who does work with people like me, and he works so hard, so ethically, and so compassionately for people. And the only reason I'm still here and that I got this in time is the work he's been doing for over 20 years and the relationships he's built. So I heard about him through a visual specialist that did brain injury work. And yeah, he fought really hard to get me seen by, you know, a very world-renowned neurosurgeon. So feels a little bit weird to name drop, but it is so deserved to such a degree. And, like, I'm literally, like, I'm alive and I'm walking, and I'm gonna work hard to develop what I can. And I just feel like when people work so, I don't know, there's just so much done out of just goodness, and I think it's important to kind of name that, because yeah, my family, my friends, we're all just so lucky that I'm here, and I really hope I can do everything I can to just keep it developing, because after over a third of my life dealing with this stuff, the idea that like I might keep getting more. I want that so badly.